Today on the Sound of Ages podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about storytelling and how it's employed in Andrew Maxfield's Poor Richard's Madrigal. You may recognize this piece as it's our intro music and our outro music. We've talked about madrigals before, not necessarily as it pertains to storytelling and how storytelling is done in music, one of the ways. It can be done in infinite number of ways, and here's one of them. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the Sound of Ages podcast.
I was content, she would keep sticks, so I was content, she would keep sticks, but where she would keep sticks, she would be
Well, Drew.
Well, Cam.
Welcome.
Welcome. Well, Cam.
Ooh, well, Cam.
Well,
Drew.
Cam. Well, Drew.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
I've been thinking about we are working on this project, and we are working on, I don't know if I should give it away, but I'm going to do it anyway. Here it is. Wait, what were you going to say? You leaned in.
Do I know about this project, Cam? Are you about to make a reveal?
No comment. It's me giving you an assignment and revealing to the audience at the same time. No, I'm just kidding.
This
We have
is
talked
killing
about this,
me.
Drew. Drew and I, we have talked about this. There's this project that we've been working on. The concept is similar to a barbershop tag, if you know what that is. But it is called the Micro Madrigal. The Micro Madrigal. Dun, dun, dun.
Or
And
the Madrigal for short.
Yeah. The Madrigal.
Yeah.
You know that? You know what song I was just referencing, by the way?
Probably not My Sharona is my guess.
Oh, no, that's another good one, though. It's Madness by Muse.
That's good.
It's a good song.
Is anybody going to make it this far in the podcast? We haven't said anything yet.
Yeah, no, they'll probably turn it off. So let's get started. Micro madrigals. And if I were to sum up what a micro madrigal is, it would be a small 4 to 8 measure, 4 to maybe even 16 or 24 measure, but a small little miniature piece that explores the text in a kind of explicit way and has all the madrigalisms, but it's just very compact and it's used for teaching. And the reason why madrigals are so great to teach singing is because of the variety, in my mind, and the musical independence and the imitation. So you have a leader, and then you have a follower who does the same basic thing or something similar, and you have legato line, very quiet, very loud, staccato, marcato, very energetic. So you have all these opposites at play to describe the text. And it's really fun when you can tell the story in that sort of rhetorical, highly dramatic way. And so getting younger singers to like buy into this, let's be a little bit dramatic about it, is really awesome. And so another great, we've talked about madrigals before, but to dive deep into a 21st century madrigal, we look at none other than Poor Richard's Madrigal, written by the one, the only Sir Andrew Maxfield.
Thank you. Did you just knight me?
I did.
Wow,
I don't have my hockey stick, but I would hockey stick knight you right now if I could.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I feel very... Yep. Which leads us
Poor
back
Richard's
to...
Madrigal.
There we go.
how would you describe, first of all, why did you even write this? And what was your source of inspiration? And why on earth does it exist? It's so cool and fun.
Well, Cam, so a couple of years ago with Sand of Ages, we were experimenting with a concert that we called Sing Actually, the Choral Rom-Com, which stitches together some kind of madcap, silly theater stuff where I was acting as kind of a narrator actor. And we were mixing that with...
it was awesome. I might cut here and insert a clip of the concert of Drew being the jaded protagonist who's secretly a romantic and yet is jaded about everything. It deserves an award.
Man, the seatbelt sign is still on you to sit down.
Subtitle, 72 hours later, location, Reykjavik. Man, Iceland, what a place to get cold feet. Well, I find myself in a seafood shack, wondering if I should just turn around and go home. You know, in a classic hero's journey, this would be the moment when a wise old Ian McKellen gives me a cryptic yet inspiring blessing that sets me back on my path. And to my surprise, Sir Ian enters. And sits beside me at the bar, blowing thin blue smoke rings from a corncob pipe. And for a long while, we stare in silence at our cubes of fermented shark meat. And then, with all the wisdom of Gandalf, Magneto, and Gus the theater cat from the ill-fated live-action adaptation of Cats the Musical, Sir Ian looks at me and says, "Yuck, I wouldn't stay here if I were you." And it's just what I needed to hear.
I have no theatrical aspirations, Cam, but for some inexplicable reason, I have been willing to make an absolute fool of myself in front of audiences in these goofy...
But they love it.
Well, if you say so, in these goofy narrative concerts. But we had this concert that we were putting together, and by and large, the music that was on it was kind of, you know, Madrigal adjacent. And we wanted, I think we just wanted a new piece. And in parallel to that, I had been reading poems like I usually do, but came across some little ditties by Benjamin Franklin that were published in Poor Richard's Almanac, and they're all cheeky, so cheeky, and they aren't. I mean, it's maybe arm's length from Shakespearean English, or from like what you might think of as like Renaissance text, the way that you would typically think of for bona fide madrigals. On the other hand, it's not so far removed. And I read these little poems and I thought, oh, this is great. I mean, this is as cheeky as now is the month of Maying. And it took no more than those two sparks to fire that I thought, oh, well, probably what we need is a Poor Richard madrigal. And when I was in the UK for a residency with my doctoral program, I had a little bit of time to myself, and my mentor, John Pickard, wonderful composer, he just let me squat in his office and use his piano. And so I sat there and I worked out most of this piece while I was in the UK.
That is so awesome. And I remember when we were thinking about this is, okay, let's back up and give just a little bit more context to Sing Actually, the first choral rom-com, because it was our first narrative concert. And we had pieces on, as we initially came up with the idea of the story and stuff. And I was flipping through and I said, what kind of music would stitch a rom-com together? And it was just obvious in my mind that it would be English madrigals from then and now. And so we had some Thomas Morley or Thomas Tompkins. I think we had a Wilkes in there, maybe. Yeah. And we had John Wilby in there. We had a couple of John Wilby. Weep No More, Thou Sorry Boy, Oh Wretched Man, something like that. Like just the most pitiful like texts. And then we had some new there's 4 great Shakespearean madrigals by Owen Park that we did, and some Finzi. And we just kind of stitch all those together, and we needed one that would kind of serve as the chase, so to speak.
The chase. Yes, that's right.
Right. And so then this text fit perfectly for this kind of teasing chase, playing the game a little bit. And so in that part of the story, it worked out. And I don't remember the exact details, but it seemed to me that there was like this hole in the story. And most of the old British madrigals are very, there weren't very many that are on the actual chase. It was either cool, we love each other, or I'm going to kill myself because you don't love me anymore. And there was nothing really in between. So
yeah. It's like it's all the silly or all the sad multiplied by 1,000. Yeah. Well, the text is quite fun. Maybe I can just read that as a starting place.
Do it.
And the thing is, I don't know whether Franklin would have published this under a pseudonym, because he did that frequently depending on the context. And so maybe this was anonymous when it was first encountered. Maybe it was under his own name. We could go digging if we wanted to. But it says, my love and I for kisses played. She would keep stakes, meaning score. I was content, but when I won, she would be paid. This made me ask her what she meant. Quoth she, since you are in this wrangling vein, here, take your kisses. Give me mine again. It's just...
Yeah, it's so good,
man. Silly, coy lover's chase kind of thing.
It's so good. And the music is like a perfect reflection in so many ways, and we'll get into that. But I just... the last contextual question I had, and this is maybe you don't know, and that's okay, because I just thought of this just now, but Poor Richard is a really fascinating thing, because in the great television program The Office on NBC, used to be on NBC, the bar that's in Scranton that they all go to is called Poor Richard's, and they go to Poor Richard's. And it's in that New England, well, it's in Pennsylvania. And so what is the significance of Poor Richard to that country, that time period, Benjamin Franklin? There is a person named Richard who was poor in some way. Well, and I don't know the answer.
Yeah, Poor Richard's Almanac was a farmer's almanac, if I remember right. And it was published. So I'm just reading a little bit about this right now. So Ben Franklin adopted the pseudonym of Poor Richard, or Richard Saunders, for this purpose. And the publication appeared in the early 1700s. And I think it was part commentary and witticisms and farming advice and whatever else. It's still published under some sort of imprint. You can see it from time to time. It's a fun novelty publication. Yeah.
So it was a pseudonym for Ben himself.
Yeah.
Little Benji. Yeah. This kite. Okay. So we see this piece here, and we get into the beginning, And the beginning is really awesome because it is a direct quote. Fa la 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 la. And then it changes a little bit. Well,
Yes.
kind of. It's still the quote. But Drew, tell us what you were thinking. You alluded to it earlier.
Well, okay, so now is the month of May. If you had to make a list of top 40 madrigals of all time,
Yeah.
wouldn't you put this at the tip of the top? It's
totally.
It's also a fun, cheeky madrigal. Rolling in the hayfields and all that. But what I was thinking in this case was that if I was going to write a madrigal, and if it was going to be silly and playful and cheeky, I kind of wanted to just announce at the outset that those are all on purpose. This is supposed to be exactly what it sounds like it's trying to be. So it starts with what you might think of as like a quotation or an incipit of the Morley Madrigal. Da, 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 da. And that little pitch right there, depending on how you hear the tonality of what it's about to follow, you can kind of hear that as a leading tone. You can kind of hear it as a sharp 4. But the point is that gives that sound, do 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 do, gives it that a little bit of a Renaissance flavor. It's not really pastiche. It's not supposed to really be Renaissance, but it's going to give it just that. We're just sprinkling a little bit of Renaissance seasoning on this, And the other thing is that the minute that it becomes itself in earnest, which is in bar 3, it's in 5/8, and it stays that way for almost the entire piece. And that is not a Renaissance feature.
Correct. Mucho correct.
Mucho not Renaissance. But the point is that the little it's just like a little launch pad. It's like we're jumping into the swimming pool, but the diving board is this little reference to the Thomas Morley Madrigal, and it's going to make us smile. That's the entire purpose.
And it definitely does that. And then we get into this off-kilter dance. La 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 la. And the funny thing is, so this is okay. In the old days, they had mensural notation, which is a awkward word to say. But mensural notation is what do they call our modern notation in terms of rhythms?
Well, pre-time signature is basically what it is.
Yeah. And the way it was is that pretty much, well, you could divide things. It was telling you how all the notes related to each other. So if you had imperfect, you had like triplum, and you had all these, the words don't matter, but it was like, okay, each beat is this long, and then you divide those beats into 3, and then you divide those beats into 3, and then you divide those beats into 3. Or you can divide these beats into 3, and then those beats into 2, and then those beats into 2. Or these big beats are divided into 2, and then to 2. And it was just, that's kind of how it was. And there was no measure lines. There was no bar lines. So when we see these things here, these divide the music into groups of beats that tell us that are basically ways to organize things together. So we can say, we line up on the downbeat here, which is very helpful. But back in the day, none of those vertical lines would have been there, and you would have just had a string of these notes. And so they had their own kind of modern aesthetic and idea of like this particular rhythmic feel makes you feel like dancing. And there's a natural lilt to it somehow. And a lot of them were very specifically designed around specific dances, like courtly dances, all of that stuff. And so nowadays, if you hear like a yum bum bum yum bum bum yum bum bum yum bum bum, that 6/8 feel gives you this lilt. But for some reason, I feel just as much, if not more, of a dance, but it just increases maybe the energy of the dance when it's asymmetrical. But you would think, because that because the dividing of the beat, or like dividing of the measure, so if we go back to the score, you can't divide this measure in half really, because it's asymmetrical by definition. So there's 3 and then 2. And so when you're thinking about, well, how is asymmetry dance like? What would you say to that in a modern context, Drew?
Well, I think mensural notation is fascinating, and it's basically just like a bad system. It's like going to the barber to be bled if your humors are out of balance, right? It's like, it's what you do. Right. It's what you do on the way to eventually coming up with a good system. I mean, I'm joking. Yeah. I think they were inventing the world that we live in. It was quite interesting. But one thing that I like from that era and that world is the juxtaposition of 2s and 3s. You know, you might have a whole section that's in a duple, and then suddenly you've got the da 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 da, like in contrast with it. That's a very Renaissance and Madrigal kind of sensibility. And you would see that in larger form contrasts. You wouldn't see 3 + 2, 3 + 2, 3 + 2 as you have it here.
Right.
But when I think about music, particularly kind of like chamber music or orchestral music that has what we might describe as kind of a quintessentially American sound to it. This is from Copeland onward. A lot of American music sounds the way it does because of rapid juxtaposition of symmetrical and asymmetrical metric groupings, or something a little bit like Cowboy Off Kilter or something like that. And I think that a lot of things can contribute to something feeling dance-like, and I feel like on average 3s tend to just dance. And I think there's something about the asymmetry, not asymmetry in the metrical grouping like we're talking about here, but the fact that you have sort of down, up, up, down, up, up. There's an imbalance there that feels like you're resisting gravity, whereas like a dun, 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 that doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's playing into gravity with this kind of like marchiness as opposed to like lifting off the earth. But in this case,
that's a cool way to think about it.
You know, I think 5/8 can feel dancey. It could also feel stumbling and
true,
off kilter. And any of those are fine, because what it does is, as long as the wheels don't fall off, there is a certain kind of playful lightness that prevails.
Yeah,
and I feel like music that's in asymmetrical meters, like the asymmetry feels unsettled in a good way, because it just keeps your energy level up. One of my desert
because
island...
it's more like Kirby on Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Actually, yes, that's right.
Versus like a drunk person, like kind of like stumbling. It doesn't feel like that. It just feels bouncy and floaty and Kirby-like.
Yeah. This is a Kirby kind of piece.
Yeah.
But one of my desert island pieces is Techelim by Steve Reich. It's this setting of Hebrew Psalms. And it is, I can listen to it forever. Like I feel like the gates of heaven will, like over the speakers there one speaker is going to be playing, not simultaneously, but one speaker will be playing Steve Reich's Techelim, and the other will be Duraflay Requiem. It's like, if I hear that music, I know I'll wake up and be like, oh,
that you're in the right place.
Well, I'm like, this is good news. Maybe I didn't screw up so bad after all. But the reason I mentioned the Steve Reich piece is that it shifts between meters, between 5, 7, 6, 4, constantly. Like, if you are not just paying attention, but like paying attention as though your entire life depends on it.
So if you're playing percussion,
for example, yeah, like, but if you're not both an amazing musician and extremely attentive, the wheels are going to fall off. And that kind of idea, even though it's like thrilling in performance, that's not the idea behind a piece like this. This is one where there's a gentle, constant stumbling, like Kirby level stumble, floating, but it's it's not meant to be hard, and it's not meant to trip people up. It's just meant to keep people kind of tipping forward.
Yeah. And something that would make it significantly harder, and the way I can tell that you achieved that goal of it's not difficult, it just is supposed to give it this lilt, is the fact that most of the piece, I mean, a little bit here towards the end, which we'll get to in a little bit, but 99.99% of the piece, is 3 + 2 versus alternating back and forth all the time, or having, like, it would be sometimes composers to then like dilute the lilt here. They'll have one of the parts in 3 + 2 and another one would be like 2 + 3.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it, those are really tricky to count as the musicians. And so, but it's very consistent. There is a moment where it does that and it has this ambiguity, but for the sake of kind of building this tension that we'll get to at the end. But then right here from the start, after we kind of have this exposition setting the scene, then we get into a very classic, a very classic Renaissance technique called imitation. And imitation, kind of like a canon or a round, but it's more like an echo, where the beginning, one part will lead, another part will follow with the same notes, either identical notes or a couple notes below, a fourth or a fifth, or sometimes even a third. In the Renaissance, it was not very, it wasn't the Baroque, where it's like you have the statement and then you have a real answer or a tonal answer. It wasn't anything like that, but it was you'd have one part lead, one part follow, and then they kind of morph into their own like freely composed lines. And this is a little bit more strict, but it starts here with the soprano, and it's kind of like, again, you have the alto and the tenor serving as, again, I've been thinking about camera work and lights, but this is kind of like the light design and the mood. And then you have the characters of the soprano and the bass literally kind of chasing each other with that Kirby lilt.
Yep.
And they're chasing each other, teasing playfully. On the word played, you have them tumbling down. Played. And then we have this cool moment of like, there's the end of that phrase, fa la la la. And then we rebarred some things here. Oh, no, we didn't. I just wrote big time signatures. A little extension to get us back into the mood. And now all of a sudden the alto has joined the soprano and it's all together. Repeating of the text. A very common thing in the Renaissance is that, if you think about now is the month of May or any madrigal from that time period, they take one sentence or phrase of the text, and they'll set that and they'll repeat it a bunch in that sort of mood. And then the next phrase or text, the mood or point of imitation and setting kind of shifts a little bit. And sometimes it can be really dramatic. Sometimes it's really subtle. And so, but this is a subtle example where now we're repeating the text, so we have the same material. You've just tweaked it a little bit to give it some interest and some texture, but it's the same text, so it's the same idea. And then it shifts a little bit when you get to she would keep steaks here at 41. But when I won, now it's this now very new idea. And so what do you think? Well, like, maybe this is a stupid question, but when you have this shift, when I won, she would be paid. To me, textually, that feels like when I won, she would be paid. I would have taken all that. She could keep steaks. Oh, I was content. She would keep steaks. But when I won, she would be paid. I feel that all is one idea. But I feel like musically, when you get here, it's almost like you break up that textual idea to start a new musical idea here. And so what leads you to make those kinds of decisions?
Well, it's always text. And in this case, if you think about how silly the text is, this is the sort of the narrator winking at the audience. Right. My love and I for kisses played. She would keep steaks. I was content. But when I won. Right.
Wink,
You can
wink.
you can imagine somebody sort of like delivering this poem, right? And I to me, whenever I write pieces that are set, with words, I try to memorize the words, and I imagine myself saying them out loud in lots of different ways. And a piece like this, I feel like, could either take itself way too serious. It could take itself seriously, or it could be really artsy or something. But I didn't want that. I wanted it to feel cheeky and sassy and kind of not overwrought, but just a little bit like over the top, right? So, but when I won, she would be paid. And, and then this made me ask her what she meant.
What she meant, Well, what did you?
Oh, heavens, honey. Oh, good heavens, honey. Whatever do you mean? Right? I mean, it's basically that, it's right? And then you have
18th century flirting.
Oh, 100%. And then you have an entire page of fa la 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 la, right? I mean, it's
right. It's so just good.
It's a whole page of silly flirting.
Yeah. And I love when it gets to, so she would be paid. This made me ask her what she, quoth she, la 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 la, and it just, okay, I gotta share the screen because people can't see it. But the thing that's fascinating musically to me as the conductor here is that you have, we've been circling around G and D with this C sharp, which contributes to the lilt in so many, and the lightness, because it's like you have this raised pitch in the scale and this off-kilter waltz, and all of a sudden you have these F naturals, and this kind of cadences here with this, well, first of all, B flat, D flat, and then G and B flat, and it just kind of is this little it's almost kind of like again, like that cheeky looking at the camera.
Good heavens, dear, whatever do you mean?
right, of like,
Right.
and then quoth she, getting down to that F, and then it builds up in F with that raised fourth. Fa la 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 la. I can't even go that high. But then it gets to the C sharp. So you've built two scales. You've built a scale that goes from F through B natural to C. So that's 1/5 with a raised fourth. Then C to G is a normal major scale, but then G up to D, then you raise the C to a C sharp, even though it's been natural before. So it's just this constant, like, what's going to happen next? And now we're dancing again.
Yeah.
Well, and I just think it's so clever. I think it's so clever, actually. It's subtle. It's not taking itself seriously, but it's a really clever effect.
Yeah, thank you. So, if you look at it in terms of narrative pacing, this made me ask her what she meant. That's an important moment in the text because whatever her reply is going to basically be the punchline.
The punchline. Yeah.
Right. And so we're teeing up the punchline. And to tee up a punchline, you don't resolve everything and land with, with terminal punctuation with a period.
Right.
You leave it open. Like there's a semicolon in the text. What she meant. Right. And so harmonically, it's that same kind of gee whiz, I wonder. And it has this.
As if it's a real question.
It's not a real question. Good point. This is all rhetorical. But we live for rhetoric like this. And so we're about to tee up the punchline. And both because I'm trying to accomplish that goal and also as sort of like a little game for myself. I'm always just playing games when I'm writing pieces of music. It's fun to see if you swing the pendulum to one location harmonically, how can you swing it back to where you began or where you need to go? And very often, like if you're thinking in a sonata form or even in a fugue or whatever, you'll have a transition or a retransition. You'll have this period where the listener knows that you're kind of like you've grabbed the theater set and you're rotating it because we're on our way back to someplace, right? And this like return is important because it's a signal to the listener. It says something about the pacing in the journey that we're taking together and how we now contextualize where we've been. Like how far away from home did we swing before we now sense that we're on our way back to home, right? And so this is meant to feel like a retransition, to pull us back into that home turf. Well, it's interesting because when I've, I grew up playing like kind of ordinary piano lessons and playing all sorts of tonal music. And when you think about tonal music, you sort of conclude that there's such a thing as a 7-note scale, and it's either major or it's minor or whatever. And then later on, you're reading some footnote in a music theory book, and you say, wait a minute, it hasn't always been thus. And even when before we were thinking in terms of church modes, and in this case, Lydian would be a word that would pop up over and over again because we see this raised fourth. Even before then, we started in much smaller units. Like our whole idea of diatonic, it has to do with these smaller increments of steps, right? And conceiving of 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5 as a total unit, it's super interesting to me, to my own ears, to notice the tendency of things when you really pay attention to the steps and you pay attention to the smaller units of counterpoint, because they're so pungent and so interesting and they want to take you places. And sometimes those places aren't where the kind of like easy prefabricated major minor tonal template would take you. And so, for example, if you sit down at a piano and you go 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, and then you take your destination as the new 1, 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, and you take your new destination as the 1. You just do that infinitely, and it's a way to find your way around the circle of fifths, and it feels like a scale that never ends, that's sort of like ascending, and it's I can't tell whether it it's like like you're at Olive Garden or something, and they're like, do you want some Parmesan on your salad? And you're like, yeah, sure. And then you don't know whether if you're supposed to say that's enough, or like you're supposed to say stop, and you don't know what, and you just watch the thing pile up, and it's like, oh my gosh, when yeah,
say when you want me to stop.
Yeah, or it's like spooning sugar on top of something. I don't know, but it's like you have this like super scale, this infinite loop of Lydian madness, and it would be ridiculous to keep going through all 12 nodes on the circle of fifths. I mean, that would be dumb, but maybe it wouldn't, what do I know, but going through 3 of them, and you get that sort of like funny upward twisting, ever sweetening, ever brightening sensation, and then when you land, you're like, wait a minute,
whoa,
this is where we started. Oh, that was funny, right? And I think,
right,
because if you're playing the composer game, what you're doing is you're kind of designing that journey for the people who are going to go on the journey along with you. And I can't ever predict if they're going to love it or if it's going to be exactly what they'd hope for, but I can kind of imagine what it would be like if I'm on that journey, because I've been on so many musical journeys. And so I see this pendulum. We've swung at one direction to get to we're going to tee up the punchline, and then you're going to get this swingy sensation that's going like, wow, we're back. It's almost like wipe out. Yeah.
And I think the because you could do that, because composers do that, or what are you doing? You're doing your theory exercises, and you can do that same thing with quote unquote secondary dominance, where you lower the bass a fourth and then lower the seventh, like you lower by half steps, down, 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 to where you get this like 5-1, 5-1, 5-1, 5-1, and that has kind of like a similar effect, but it's this kind of descending cool down version of that in a tonal language, versus thinking about it in this ascending, taking that note, sharpening it to the fifth, which could sound like the seventh now, leading us to 1, then sharpening the fourth to get to the fifth, which could also be, it's like a Venn diagram, where it's like this part of the circle is sharp 4 to 5, this part of the circle is 7 to 1, and look right here, there's that note, but you're right that it has this ascending feeling instead of the descending feeling that you could do if you're going around the circle of fifths in a tonal way.
Yeah, well, and jazz harmony and jazz reharmonization is full of tricks like that and curiosities that are based on these same sorts of things. I mean, without reharmonizing anything, the B section of I've Got Rhythm is sort of a classic example of a 5 of 5 of 5 of chain that's a sequence that leads you thrillingly back to your home base. But the art of the turnaround and the reharmonized turnaround, like that is a big category of what jazz harmony cats get so stoked about, because when you're, and I tell this to my students when we're doing counterpoint exercises, is that the listener is only ever moving through time forward. We're moving with the clock from one moment to the next moment to the next moment. But the composer has the very weird privilege and obligation actually to work backwards. The opportunity, if we will, where you say, look, thither lies a thrilling destination. However, will I reverse engineer the course that takes the listener through time towards that destination. And I think one of the things that happens for a lot of composers, songwriters, creative types, it's one thing to love writing, and everybody should love writing because it's fun. It's one thing to write intuitively, where you're like, well, I just wrote scene 1 of my play, I guess now I'll write scene 2. Okay.
Right.
And you just kind of you just lean into whatever comes next, and that's all great. But you reach I think you reach a different level of craft when you start noticing that you are in charge of the climax or the destination or the special moment or the golden brick or whatever, and you get to reverse engineer the path of moment to moment to moment to moment that leads your audience to the thrilling destination. And when you get these guys that are so good at jazz reharm, you find the most creative, side-winding, unexpected somersault pads, and then you tumble into that destination. You're like, how did I get here? That was so cool. That was the most fresh thing I've ever felt in my life. I love that.
Right. And it's interesting because I took a playwriting class when I was in high school, and the feedback I got from my classmates was, your story is kind of like meh, but your dialogue is the most natural, realistic dialogue we've heard in this class and whatever. And I was like, cool. How do I get good at telling stories? And it was because I was in then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. And I was just scrolling on YouTube Shorts one day, and the guys who wrote South Park were giving a master class on story writing and show writing. And they said, and it seems obvious now, but it was so revolutionary at the time, where it's like, it's not this happens, then this happens, then this happens. It's because this happened, then this happened. Because this happened, then this happened. And so it's like cause and effect. And a lot of philosophy and modern philosophical thinkers have talked about how we view the world in story, which is a series of cause and effect. And we can't actually disassociate any object from its meaning and its use. And so we can't see the silhouette of a hammer and not see what it's used for. We can't, because we perceive the entire world through story. And so when you get it, so it shows up in everything, right? Like even like nature, because this seed got water, then here's the effect, and the cause of the sunlight has this effect. And so when I think about this piece, then in musical storytelling, it's, you teed it up. And I think that's one of the things that you're really good at, because you're also a really good like narrative writer, like of actual story and writing. And that's why it's been so fun to collaborate on our narrative concerts and our even songs, and I love shaping a concert to be a story, a series of cause and effect. Because otherwise, stand, sing, clap, stand, sing, clap, stand, sing, clap is so boring. Even with like the best groups, there comes a point where I'm like, I want a whole experience of cause and effect. And I think this is a microcosm of that, because again, and it's like the hero's journey. We called to adventure, we set the scene, there's a call to adventure, there's this soprano line, and then the follow of the bass line, and then we get into this moment of what she meant, and then now the heroes, and it's changed, and then the hero returns, and we have this again where now the fa-la-las are up higher and more intense, and the playful flirting is at its crescendo, and you can feel that, like, we're sprinting around the living room trying to, like, I don't know, tackle each other. Liz punches me when she's feeling excited.
I'm not going to ask any questions.
I live in a really aggressive household.
Oh boy.
And so but then since you are in now the bass leads, right? We're in familiar territory, but now we've changed.
We've reversed who's following whom. Yeah.
Yep. The bass leads, the soprano follows Vane. And then here we get to this insane moment. And this is the most difficult passage of the whole piece because of the rhythm that these inner voices have, because this is the tumbling and the crashing into the lampshade or something, like in my mind in the story, because it's you, and it's in this 6/8 while everybody else is still in 5/8, but their 5/8 is also like off kilter a little bit somehow.
It's a little chaos. You have to really trust your inner eighth note. But on the storytelling front, I was just thinking about the fact that I've learned a lot about the storytelling from Ruthie Perlman, who has been a collaborator of ours. She came up with the story through line for Sing Actually when we did that first narrative concert. She came up with the storyline for Death in the Choir, the choral murder mystery, and collaborated.
There's both of those posters back there behind you too, which is great.
Right there on the wall. And she helped with Guilty Pleasures Radio Hour, and one of the things so she's been in a writing room on a TV show in LA before. Like she's a writer and a fabulous storyteller and the best collaborator. But one of her mentors said that they're always, the minute that there's resolution, the story is dead, right? Like, so you have to, there has to be something, you have to have a need that's unfulfilled, or you can't know something that you need to know or whatever. And they were talking about it. And I think she was trying to get at the deeper how to or something. He's like, no, it's simple. Like, you have a character walk on and say, I have a secret, and then walk off and not tell you what the secret is. And
it's so simple, but that is, and now I'm like, well, what's the secret, Drew?
What's the secret? See, I'm not going to tell you, but
gosh dang it.
I know. Well, and actually it reminds me, there was, this may be apocryphal, but the story that I heard is that somebody asked Alfred Hitchcock, how long could you sustain a kiss on screen? And he said, indefinitely, but I'd put a bomb under the bed. Right? Because there's something, there's something that we know, or something something that we know, or something that we don't know. Either way, it's changed the relationship with the audience and their experience of time, where there's this thing that you don't have, that you absolutely need to have, that's now pulling you through story, through time forward. And in a way, like if you were to start a piece of music, and then it goes into, like, I don't know, the middle movement of the Pastoral Symphony or something like that, the entire audience is still going to be sitting there like in a sweat.
Yeah, totally.
Because at some point, either the orchestra is going to supply the necessary or somebody in the audience will shout it out because they can't handle it long. Yeah. They can't handle it longer, or somebody will just like pass out. And like, right. And so the question of storytelling, it is interesting because the tee up of the piece, in a way, is a little bit like a character saying, I've got a secret, and then walking off. Yeah. And for the rest of the piece, you're like, wait, well, what is it? I want to know now. And that's like the way that a joke works, right? You tee up something so that if you were to walk away without dropping the punchline, everybody would be really unhappy. Like, you're doing your job well if they care so much that they're angry that you didn't give them the punchline. If they don't care, it means you didn't do a very good job teeing up the joke, or the joke wasn't all that clever. And so both at the macro level of building a story architected concert, the way that the narrative concerts have been, or in the micro level of a piece, there's some element of teeing up so that the punchline matters, or introducing a little secret, or putting a bomb under the bed, or something,
right,
so that
some
people
cause without giving the effect all the
yes,
way. Right?
yeah, exactly. Otherwise, people just like, well, I don't really care how it ends. It wasn't even that interesting.
Well, and I think that, I mean, again, this is going to sound like I think that composers and conductors should take like storytelling classes or pay attention to storytelling, because it's the same. The principles are the exact same regardless of the medium, and you can tell, like, that's one of the things I fell into, right, as a young composer, and I still fall into as a composer. I'm not a composer. I dabble once every several years, but it's like amateur composers and amateur conductors, they're not thinking about the big picture first. They get right into, well, this is this chord, and then this chord, and then this chord, and then this chord, and this chord, and let's tune this, and let's tune this, and they go, and then they execute, and it sounds beautiful and it's awesome, but there's like something lacking. And I think it is that sense of, can you tell this as a whole story? This piece, this set of 3 pieces, this first half before intermission, this entire concert. I mean, it would be cool as we keep going with Sound of Ages, to tell like seasonal stories, right? Where we're telling big, and I just think it's super fascinating. So then to your point, where we're like right on the verge of that punchline, the real punchline, and we get to, and something that I think helps paint that is this moment, because it's kind of tumbling, the tensity is crescendoing, but it's kind of in this tumbling thing where, but these lines are rising in unison, or in octaves, which give it a really strong rising, while these are cascading in canon. This wrangling pain, and it wrangling pain. And that cool little shiver, or like shimmy, is on such a cool. It's that flatted quote. Again, I don't know a better terminology, but for the sake of brevity, the flat 7 chord is so leaving you up in the air, hanging. When are we gonna come down? Like, we hit this thing and everything stops.
Because it's a more interesting dominant.
Yeah.
That's
right.
That's what it's doing,
substitution, right?
Yeah, because on the little, a lot of jazz reharm uses this kind of AXIS system that, in a way, Bartók kind of innovated. But you take the root note of the dominant, which is D in this case, and you go a minor third in any direction in that kind of compass, and you've got a menu of options for dominant substitutions that do the same job, same kind of level of gravitational force, but with a different flavor. I mean, it's the same thing that we do like if you imagine substituting a modal minor dominant as opposed to the standard major or dominant 7 chord that you'd get in a major key. It's a refreshing flavor. It's a flavor thing.
So then by that definition, you said axis, you take the dominant and you take the root and move it minor third in either direction. So then would another option be like a B?
Yeah,
B,
so
D sharp, F sharp, A kind of idea?
It's context dependent, but like if you're in a kind of a G-ish sonority, which is where we are here, you could argue that an F major sonority and a D major sonority do approximately the same job.
Right. Narratively speaking.
Yeah. When I think about harmony as a composer, as opposed to sort of teaching Roman numerals, I think about like degrees of gravity. So, it's like when painters make a color wheel and you say, well, there are 3 primary colors.
Yeah.
at some point somebody's going to say, well, why are there? And you just say, I don't know. In the galaxy that we inhabit with the senses that we do, there are 3 primary colors, and they are red, yellow, and blue. And this is how a color wheel emerges from that sort of axiomatic truth. Yeah. So in harmony, we wind up with sort of these like tonic, dominant, subdominant fields, kind of like I don't know, magnetic fields or something. Like, well, why are there those? And like, well, I don't know. You can pick apart the whole history of tonality and the way that we perceive acoustic consonants if you want to, or we can just kind of agree that there are 3 useful points on a map. Right. Fine. And I just see them as kind of like sort of 3 planets that are near each other with these kind of like large gravitational fields. And the way that you make an interesting sensation in music is that you're always moving in a gravitational field between one of those sort of areas. And there are a lot of different configuration of notes that can achieve that sort of, you could, if you say it's like red, yellow, and blue, if yellow is your dominant, there's a lot of different shades of yellow, and there's a lot of different ways to accomplish sort of a dominant job, or there's a lot of ways to accomplish a subdominant job. But summoning those different ways is how you compose, and making it interesting is how you create a trajectory in time for the listener. That got kind of weird, but there you go. Couple thoughts for what it's worth.
It's just like graded, right? Because you could have really strong, and I think for me as someone who likes to find the fundamental, it's because that there are half steps that exist. That there are 2 half steps that exist in any given scale. That's like very broad and almost false. But for the sake of Western music, modal music, and tonal music, there's essentially 2 half steps that exist in any given scale that help create these senses of gravity. Because a half step, it's a whole step kind of rubbing against each other feels like light shimmering to me, but a half step grinding against each other feels like a gravitational pull.
Yeah.
And so the fact that those half steps are pulling in different directions, and you can have them in different places, and you have extended harmonies and all that, gives you a lot of color gradation in the wheel. I think, to take your metaphor further of moving from blue primary color to yellow primary color, you have all these shades of green in between that you can play with that change the mood very subtly in a different way. And so when you start to play with those, that's when you get real subtlety and interest in the story and sophistication, versus just always constantly playing with primary colors, which would be 5-1.
Right. Well, and it's interesting getting back to the storytelling theme that we were on earlier. I was just thinking about like Morton Larson, right? His famous pieces. Sometimes they have a reputation of being just like a little shimmery. And actually, but the thing that I think,
inversion, add 2 chords, man.
Yeah, right. Well, and that's the thing.
The Lauritsen chord,
The Lords, literally people talk about the Lauritsen chord, right?
Right.
Here's the thing. Just learning that chord and plopping your fingers down on a piano, that's not hard. But Lauritsen is a terrific storyteller in his pieces, and he's a terrific contrapuntist with a really good ear for those kind of color details that we're describing, right? And so what's easy is to say, shimmer chord, special. That's kind of like writing that one like little scene. What's harder though is to develop his gift for the building the long arc. That's sort of like inevitable story based on the building materials that he's chosen. And I think that's where the genius shows through, is in that storytelling capacity. But it's made of the small, both the cute moments that everybody remembers and the chords that we like to name and stuff like that, but also into a lot of attention into the line level tendency and the color tendency from horizontal moment one to another, and also the sort of the verticalities that show up as a kind of in aggregate.
Yeah. And that's a really good point, because, and to your point, some people tend to get quote unquote bored with Lauritson's writing because it's, oh, there's that chord again, there's that sonority again, there's that chord again. But it's like, but theory and harmony are not synonymous.
Yeah.
You know, but we're taught, I think to your point, again, we're taught in a lot of ways subconsciously, implicitly, to think that harmony and theory are synonymous, whereas storytelling is a big part of that, and that there's so much more than just harmony that go into being able to craft a musical story. And so I see that, you know, we've if we go back now and see how that plays out for the rest of the piece, we've done this return, you know, this kind of build. What's the punchline? Quoth she, la 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 la. We build up, then we have the chase reversing. We have this tumbling down. Here, take your kisses. And it's this single line imitating, you know, the soprano. Then it imitates at a sixth, which is really cool, a little bit in the tenor. And then now we have this kind of runway to the end. And give me mine again. And there's that la 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 from the month of May that we hear again with the fa la las underneath. And give me mine again. Give me mine again, give me mine again, give me mine again. Fa la 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 la. Here, take your kiss. And we rebarred this a little bit, just conductorly. Yep. Here, take your kisses, give me mine again. And then it ends on this high denouement kind of fa la idea. Yep. And it's just really fun. And this, I mean, these chords are just so crunchy. This cheeky grinding kind of, here, take your kisses, fine, you win kind of thing. But one here, please, you know, kind of thing right at the end. So I think it's awesome, and it's really fun.
I mean, you want a great tooty moment at the end,
right? Just totally.
I mean, you just do you know what I mean? Just for the dramatic fun of it. And it's effectively kind of a slash dominant, if you want to think about it that way, but it's just yep. Well, there it was. That was a madrigal, you know?
Yep. Yeah, totally. And it just ends perfect, and it's really fun, and it's cheeky, and it, for that very reason, is why I have it as the intro and the outro music to every episode of the podcast, because I think that kind of lighthearted, not so serious is the tone of the show that we try to create, where we talk about stuff, talk about fun stuff, not take ourselves too seriously, but hopefully be informative and say things that are interesting and give people a little peek behind the curtain, both to Sound of Ages as an organization, both to Drew's compositional process, my conducting process, music more broadly, these pieces specifically, et cetera, et cetera. And so we'll, without further ado, Drew, any further notes, I guess, further thoughts? Final thoughts.
I mean, if we're talking about stuff, is this a good time to talk about my royalties for using it every time?
Oh, yeah. So the royalties, let's see. Got this drawer for your royalties.
Well, with that, folks, let's have a listen.
was content. She would keep sticks, but where she would she would be pig. She would be pig. She would be pig. She would be pig. This may ask her what she meant. Quoth she, la 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 la, she la 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 la. See to this rain, 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 this rain. Take your kisses, take your kisses, take your kisses, give me my love, give me my love, give me my love, give me mine again, give me mine again. Fa la fa la la la. Here, take your kisses, give me mine again.
Well, there you have it. There's Poor Richard's Madrigal. And now you know the rest of the piece. You've been listening to the beginning and the very end, however often you've been listening to this podcast, but it's really great to hear the whole piece uninterrupted. And so be sure to check out that single, as well as another single, which will be announced next week, that will be coming out July 10th. That's right, folks, July 10th. You will see a double-track single coming out on streaming platforms near you. So thanks for joining us. Peace out.
Here, take your kisses, give me mine